Something much bigger than a car rebuild is happening right now, and most people have completely missed it. You already know the story. Matt Armstrong, a Ferrari 296 GTB, a rebuild that turned into something nobody expected, a manufacturer that many believe went out of its way to make sure that car could never drive again, software locks, digital kill switches, a battery that the car itself refused to recognize, a repair that Ferrari may have made impossible on purpose. But here's what changes everything. The European Union is about to drop a law that goes directly at what Ferrari is accused of doing. A directive that does not just suggest manufacturers play fair with repairs, it legally requires it, and it starts applying across EU member states on the 31st of July, 2026. We are not talking about a guideline, we are not talking about a proposal, we are talking about binding European law, and if the accusations against Ferrari are accurate, they may be on a collision course with it. This started years ago across dozens of industries when consumers began realizing that the products they paid for were no longer really theirs to fix. Think about what has been happening with smartphones. Manufacturers designing batteries that cannot be replaced without specialist tools, software that detects third-party parts and disables features, warranty voids the moment you open a case that you legally own. Apple spent years in this fight, Samsung too. John Deere became the symbol of the entire movement when farmers discovered they could not repair their own tractors in the middle of harvest season without manufacturer permission. It happened with washing machines, with televisions, with medical equipment, with electric bikes. Across every category of consumer product, the same pattern kept appearing. Companies selling you something, then quietly retaining control over what you could do with it once you got it home. The EU didn't miss what was happening here. They watched it for years, and eventually they stepped in. The right to repair directive didn't just appear out of thin air. It came after years of manufacturers pushing the limits of control over products people had already paid for. Independent repair shops were locked out of diagnostic software. Spare parts were restricted to official dealer networks. Products were being engineered in ways that made outside repairs almost impossible, and hidden deep inside purchase agreements were legal clauses designed to quietly remove an owner's ability to repair their own property. The European Union looked at all of this and said, enough. So they created a directive specifically designed to stop these kinds of practices. Because the next line comes directly from the European Commission. Manufacturers of products, such as fridges, cars, or smartphones, that are subject to reparability requirements in EU law and listed in Annex 2 of the directive, will have to repair those products within a reasonable time and for a reasonable price. Let that land for a second. What that is saying in plain language is this: if your product is on that list, you cannot make repairs unreasonably difficult. You cannot make them unreasonably expensive. But the directive does not stop there, because the EU understood something important. Manufacturers are creative. If you tell them they have to offer repairs at reasonable prices, some of them will simply find another way to stop the repair from happening at all. The directive addresses all of that directly. This second part is what makes this story hit differently. Here's what the European Commission says about repair restrictions specifically. In addition, manufacturers will be prohibited from using contractual clauses, hardware, or software techniques that impede the repair of goods listed in Annex 2, unless justified by legitimate and objective factors. They will also be obliged to provide access to spare parts at reasonable prices. Manufacturers are required to make available information on their repair services to consumers in an easily accessible manner. 3 things. Let us break each one down because every single one of them matters. First, manufacturers cannot use contracts, hardware, or software to block repairs. That means a software lock that prevents a battery from being recognized by the car's own systems could be directly prohibited under this directive. Second, spare parts must be available at reasonable prices, not locked behind an authorized dealer network, not quoted at figures that make independent repair economically impossible compared to buying a new vehicle. Third, repair information has to be easily accessible to consumers, not hidden, not restricted to internal technicians at official service centers, accessible, transparent, available. Because if this situation drags on until July 31st, Matt Armstrong may suddenly have far stronger legal ground to stand on. The accusation is that Ferrari's own software systems refuse to recognize a rebuilt vehicle as legitimate, that a battery which works perfectly from a physical standpoint was effectively blocked by the car's digital architecture, and that access to the software and systems required to bring that car back to life was restricted in ways that left an independent rebuilder completely locked out. Whether you believe Ferrari was protecting safety, protecting proprietary technology, or simply protecting the exclusivity of their authorized repair network, the controversy raised a question that a lot of people are now asking very loudly. Do manufacturers have the right to decide unilaterally and through software that your car is no longer repairable? Because if the EU Right to Repair directive answers that question the way its text suggests it does, the answer is no. Not if the repair is being blocked by contractual tactics, hardware design, or software techniques without legitimate and objective justification. And here's why the timing of all this matters so much. July 31st, 2026 is not far away. The directive has already been adopted. Member states are in the process of implementing it into national law. The regulatory environment in Europe is actively shifting towards stronger consumer ownership rights and away from manufacturer control over post-sale repair. That shift is happening right now, and the Ferrari controversy is landing right in the middle of it. This is why the story has grown beyond car YouTube, beyond rebuild channels and automotive forums. It is now being discussed in conversations about consumer law, technology policy, and the future of ownership in an age where almost everything we buy contains software that someone else controls. Because Ferrari is not the only manufacturer watching this, every car brand that uses software systems to manage repairs, authorize components, or gate access to diagnostics is watching what happens here. The Ferrari story has become a test case, a reference point, a moment where the question of who really owns a car after it is sold is being asked in public, loudly, and with real regulatory consequences on the horizon. Ferrari has built an empire on exclusivity, the rarity of the cars, the prestige of the brand, the mystique of the ownership experience. Part of that mystique has always included the idea that a Ferrari is not just a product, it is a relationship, one that runs through authorized dealers, official service centers, and manufacturer-controlled networks. But European law does not care about mystique, it cares about ownership rights. It cares about whether the person who paid for something has the legal right to repair it, and it is drawing a line between legitimate protection of safety and technology. If Ferrari or any luxury manufacturer cannot demonstrate that their software restrictions are based on legitimate and objective technical factors, the directive gives regulators the grounds to call that what it is, a repair block, and repair blocks under this law are prohibited. So ask yourself this. As the EU Right to Repair directive moves toward full implementation, what happens to a business model built on controlling not just how a car is made, but how it is maintained, who can fix it, and under what conditions it is allowed to run again? That is the question sitting at the center of this entire story, and we are going to find out the answer very soon. If you have been following the Matt Armstrong Ferrari rebuild arc, you already know how deep this rabbit hole goes. If you are new here, now is the time to go back and watch from the beginning, because what started as a rebuild is turning into something much, much larger. Stay with us, because this story is not finished yet.